Should we get to the news?
Yup.
Let's do it.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North and South American. All the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press.
First up in game news, we first of all, we don't have a lot of game news. As you can tell, there are other things going on in the world right now that's going to reduce that by a little bit. We actually talked about this a little bit before. Dune, the new Dune tabletop game from Gale Force 9, is going to have an expansion. The expansion is Ixians and the Tleilaxu. It's a house
good
expansion.
Pronunciation, I think.
Pardon me?
Solid pronunciation. I think you nailed it.
I try.
Ixians and the Tleilaxu.
Yes, and technically
We have
speaking,
folded space from Ix.
that's right. And technically speaking, shouldn't be the Ixians because, as we all know, that is actually the House Richesse, right? They're not.
Right, we all know that.
We all know that.
Yes.
But just because they come from the planet X doesn't mean they're that's what they are.
Tom, I seem to remember. So is this kind of a reissue? Because there was an expansion on. Didn't this expansion kind of exist for the original game also?
This is why I want to bring this up because we have mentioned this before, and I said when this came out that you're exactly right. They had an expansion for this, and it wasn't very good. There were about 3 or 4 different expansions for the original Dune. None of them made the game better.
Gotcha.
In my opinion, not just in my opinion, in a lot of.
So this isn't just like here are 2 other houses you can play. This actually is supposed to allow you to play 7 and 8 player, which sounds like a terrible idea.
It could be, but here's the thing. The rules and pieces for this iteration of the Dune game are completely different than the original Avalon Hill expansions. That is the sentence that I saw that was not announced before. That is very interesting.
We're going to try it.
Yeah, have to try it. Have to do it. I love the Tleilaxu.
We should be playing this game more anyway.
100%. I wonder.
What's the problem though? It's like the problem is that Dune does require like the people at table have to commit. You don't play Dune half-assed.
No.
Like everybody has to be down.
And you gotta have
this
6.
has to be a game that you say we're playing Dune on Saturday. If you want to play Dune, show up on Saturday type of thing. It's not one like, hey, we could play Dune on Friday night. Like it's hard for that to happen. It needs to be. It has to be properly set up.
There are the not for everyone games that we have that are amazingly perfect for the group of people that they're perfect for, and just non-starters for other people. I would say that you and 18XX are pretty much in that category, right? I mean, for some people, that is a shout to the a shout of joy when we get to play 18XX. For other people like you, that's like nope, don't want to do it. There are some people that are definitely that way for Dune, and I totally get it. It is a very different type of game to get your head around, to commit to, and to say, this is something that I want to do and spend that time. And it's also 6-player only, really. I mean, why on earth would we play Dune if we only have 5 or 4 players? I don't think we would do it.
Right.
It's kind of balanced that way. So, tricky. Here's what I think about this new expansion. I love that they're doing a different rules than the original expansion, and they're making it different. I think that's fantastic because I wouldn't be interested in it with the old expansion. That said, Gale Force 9 is not a company that I have a tremendous amount of faith in. The Dune game that they put out had as little innovation to it as you can possibly imagine. It was basically fan art and a cobbled together rule set that was basically the rules of the original Dune with just the slightest shifts for a few of the things that we have found over time to be a rule that needs to change. And I don't know if they're going to do a great job. I hope they will. I really hope they will.
Yeah, right. I'm glad it's back. I thought it was fine. I was just happy to see the game back and people able to get copies. So we'll keep an open mind for the expansion.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. My expectations are low. I don't feel like we especially need this. We can just be playing the normal game. But I'm curious to see what it does.
And you know what? I would love to play. If the other 2 factions work, I would love to play 8-player Dune. I mean, I may never want to play it a second time, but I have to play it one time. So let's move on. Next up is Matt Leacock is having a moment. He is he is the designer of a game called Pandemic, and it has gone from being a game that is mostly a hobby game that little by little is getting some play by people that don't normally play hobby games, to being a game that every journalist out there is talking about. Right? They all think that they're clever, talking about how we're all locked in. Hey, we can play board games and things like that. And there's this game called Pandemic, which seems to be quite popular. I've read.
Well, this game was already a big deal.
No,
in the gaming world.
I don't mean to take anything away from them.
Was a huge deal.
Just in comparison to it didn't. People don't bring it up the way they bring up Catan. It's not, it's not quite at that level. It is available. You do find it in Target, so it's.
That's right. It has crossed over to the Targets and the Barnes and Nobles.
Yes.
Of the world already, and this is another step.
But we did a bunch of best games of the year lists over the last couple months that we were seeing in different places, and there were plenty of places that didn't have even Pandemic as one of the games that they're thinking about. Right? They're Monopoly and the Game of Life and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's still.
But those articles are often very embarrassing.
Oh, horrible. And some of the Pandemic articles that have been coming out have been just very, very surface. So I was very, very happy to find out that Matt, for the New York Times, they did a particularly good article that was called "No Single Player Can Win This Board Game." It's called Pandemic. And Matt said quite eloquently, I thought, "My hope is that Pandemic can provide a model for us in this time of crisis. We don't all have to be globe-trotting heroes to do our part. We each have special skills and should use them to make the city and statewide lockdowns safer and easier to bear. We need to communicate effectively, reach out to our friends and loved ones, and to ensure that whatever we share on social media is based on facts." There's another paragraph we could keep on going, but I think that's right there. It's just amazing, just wonderful. You take your moment in the sun, and you say the game of Pandemic is a cooperative game, and boy, do we need to be cooperative right now. What a wonderful, wonderful way of taking this moment and focusing on the thing that really is important.
Sure. I mean, Matt is an industry leader. He was at Tabletop Network that we went to last year, and I think especially for people listening in that are thinking about designing games and are looking about like how to be a professional game designer and to emulate certain practices in order to create games. Matt Leacock should be your light in the darkness, because he especially talks about being a professional and best habits and how to test. And so I would encourage people to research Matt, look up him on BGG. I think he puts out a lot of different stuff to kind of help designers out. So he truly is kind of an industry leader, and we're seeing that he's expanding into a lot of different areas too. So we're lucky to have him.
Absolutely. In other news, we got a whole bunch of things are being delayed, things are being pushed, things are not coming out. This is a tumultuous time for everybody, but it's great to see occasionally something really cool happening. The Polish publisher Portal Games, which I said was a Czech publisher a couple weeks ago,
right.
Has done something what I think is really, really awesome. They have a game we reviewed called Detective. We talked about how much we love playing detective. It's for that genre, for that cooperative deduction solving a problem storytelling game. It's really fantastic. What's fantastic about it, probably more than anything else, is that it's based on real cases. So it's not just, the writing in these things can sometimes not quite add up to what you want it to be. Like our imaginations can be better than that. But if you're taking it from real cases that have interesting twists and the detectives were, had a tough time putting all the pieces together, boy, oh boy, what a great way to do that. Anyway, they have put out something called Detective Suburbia, and it is a scenario that is free, a free PDF that everybody can download. And without having the detective base game, you can play it at home. So if you don't have detective, you can still play a short detective scenario. You can play a short deduction game where you're working together as detectives trying to solve a crime. I think that's fantastic. I mean, I'm dying to check this out. I'm dying to play it. But to do that for people that haven't even bought your game, first of all, how many people might play this and then decide, hey, I want to buy that game? That's great in and of that. But beyond that, just the thought that there's a lot of people that are locked up, people are sequestered, people are having trouble finding good ways to fill the time. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll go a little bit further in that I feel like the writing in board games has been pretty universally bad. And Detective was an exception to that, and probably part of it was that it was based upon reality. But yeah, looking at this here, like the Portal Games website with how to play this expansion is incredibly easy to use, so people should definitely check it out.
Totally. Keeping up the good news is mostly a good news day. People are really doing things to come together and help everybody out. GAMA, the trade industry convention that just closed, put out a publisher crisis initiative list, which basically means what publishers are doing something to deal with the fact that all of our friendly local game stores are closed and the industry is in shock, just like so many other industries. And they have this list that's really great. It's great to see what's on there. It's maybe telling to see what's not on there. But companies like Ad Astra are going to PayPal 25% of the price. You can order games from Ad Astra directly, and if you specify the game store that you would normally buy this from, they will send 25% of that retail price that you paid to that game store. And there's a whole list. Arcane Wonders 25%, Atlas Games, again and again and again, Fog of Love, a great small game company, Forbidden Games, Game.
I mean, there's over 100 on the list here. I think you're just going alphabetically, so it's.
Yeah, I don't want to get too.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I think. I mean, reading between the lines here, though, this is kind of scary document.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Because it isn't that hard to think that. What percentage of brick and mortar game stores are just never gonna reopen after this? Like we're gonna take a big hit on locations, especially because it's not like a year from now, I don't think, that things will just be magically back to the way they were. Mm-hmm. Practices are probably going to change for stores if there's any kind of health risk with coming together. So, for a portion of the industry that was already really struggling, this is a devastating time that's going to change how this all works.
In the United States, yeah. I mean, in Europe, there are a bunch of countries that are instituting rent freezes. If we had a rent freeze here, that would go a long way to make businesses like friendly local game stores, restaurants, they might be able to much better survive this situation. Without that, you're absolutely right. A lot of these companies, a lot of these small businesses are going to have a really, really hard time bouncing back.
Well, let me put it this way. I mean, I have gone and played like in card game tournaments. Mm-hmm. I have always regarded when I go and do this, like you go and you see your friends and you play a bunch of card games and you're hugging and you're drinking and you're staying out till 3. And like every single one of these I go to, I end up getting sick. Like you're like, we go to Gen Con, we get con crud. Like this is almost like a standard part of like the gaming world. I don't see how coronavirus doesn't change everybody's calculation on the way that you come together with strangers and play games going forward.
Until there's until there's a vaccine, possibly.
Sure, but even then, I think people will be gunshot. I mean, it's like people that grew up during the Depression
Sure.
always, hoarded food after that or something. Like there's just no way that this doesn't have longer term changes on behavior.
I agree. I wonder. I had this conversation just the other day. We were talking about movies and the movie theaters and that the business that Matt and Dimitri and I all and plenty of other people and you as well have worked in. What's going to happen to the movie industry? And there was a very smart person that I know that knows a lot about the business of Hollywood, and he gave a very interesting perspective. He was like, "It is possible. It is not probable. It is not definite, but it is possible that at the end of the day, and we're talking a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, this could be a great thing for those businesses, in the sense that being cooped up, being in, locked down, we may find that we are going to crave in a longer and broader way than we have as a society to be out, to go out to dinner more, to go out to the movies, to have communal experiences again once we're allowed to, and it could be something that really sparks a positive thing. There are countries in Europe, Spain, Germany to some degree, that have a real street culture where people go out. Most nights they'll go out, they'll hang out, they'll have a drink, or they'll get together in a park and hang out with people. And his perspective was there is a chance that this is going to shock us maybe a little bit out of our already isolated lives and create a real thirst for communal activity. So we'll see.
I hope he's right. That sounds tremendously optimistic to me.
I thought it was too, but I thought I'd share it anyway.
Nice.
And then last but not least, Jennifer, our own game pioneer, Jennifer, had a very interesting post on Facebook that Trey and I felt we needed to share, we need to talk about. She pointed out that as more and more board gamers are moving to Tabletop Simulator, that the designers are not getting paid at all for people playing games there. Now, nobody is getting paid because when you download Tabletop Simulator, there are DLCs. There are about 40, Trey?
Yeah, it was only about 40 that you actually had to, pay money to unlock.
Yes, yep. And if you pay to unlock, these are official mods so that this game can be played. And I assume I haven't played any of those that, the mods are more automated, more, well put together than everything. But we are playing games.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't downloaded them.
I haven't done it. But when I look at the titles, they're not the games that I want to play. They really, for the most part, aren't. You're right. It's not tremendously representative of the entire pantheon here. I mean, I can see... of course, Jamie Stegmeier's got Wingspan and Scythe and Viticulture up here, but you don't see like all the top 10 games represented here at all. No. Listen, if there was a game that I really wanted to play that was on that list, I would absolutely. What is it? It's like $7 for most of the DLCs, something like that. I would totally pay that, no problem. Happy to do it. But they're not, and so we go to the workshop where fans have made mods to be able to play those games. And the conversation that Jennifer started was very, very interesting because, of course, Jennifer is the game pioneer. She has friends. So Vital Lacerda weighed in on it. Alexander Pfister weighed in on it. Alexander Pfister was a little bit more in the school of it's kind of all right. I understand people playing that and doing that. Vital was very much like, I don't think that should be done. I don't think that's a good idea. They're illegal. They don't have allowances from the publisher or designer to put games up there. And so then the question became, what's the right thing to do? How do we navigate this? Right? We are locked in our rooms. We are locked in our houses. We want to play
What's
these
the
games.
ethical response here?
Exactly.
As players.
Right. Should the publishers issue DMCA takedowns and remove these games from the workshop, from being able to be played on Tabletop Simulator? They 100% have the right to do that. We can.
Right.
There's no argument there. But if there's no other way, like how would we play Roads and Boats any other way? We would not. We would not. We would basically be saying for the next however many months, whatever period of time, we cannot play these games. At what point is it is the best response for these people not to do that? And what should we do as gamers? What do you think, Trey?
Well, I think this is an issue that the music industry has already faced, and I'm not sure they dealt with it especially well. Like, because we're kind of in the Napster world of board games now, where we can get this content for free without paying. Like, the barriers of us doing that don't really exist. Whereas now, like, you're gonna torrent MP4s to listen to? No, not really. Like, they made it easy enough that we can do, iTunes and other forms of getting music that we pay for, and we get what we need. But like, that changed the music industry radically. And
Sure.
I think what I would say is, like, as a player right now,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be thinking about this. I'm not playing any games online that that we don't have a copy of within our game group.
Yep.
I personally don't have a copy of Oceans, but what is it Matt's copy that we're playing?
I have it right here,
now.
yeah.
I probably am going to buy a copy of Oceans because I like it. And I think that, this kind of try before you buy thing is probably fine in the industry. I do think if you find yourself playing a game a number of times, hopefully you want to get a physical copy. I know I played a lot of Agricola online at playagricola.com years ago.
Yep.
And like, the way we approached that with that site was we looked at like what was the maximum number of tables we could run concurrently, which was something to like 20. It wasn't a huge site. And the site bought 20 physical copies.
Right.
So that there was a physical copy behind every digital representation. Of course, as an Agricola player, I own 3 different copies anyway for some reason. And the same thing's true with, like, I'm playing Game of Thrones LCG 2nd edition online right now. I don't pay a penny for that. I give a little bit of money to the person who runs the online site, but I didn't have to buy those cards. That said, I have all the physical cards. FFG got my money using their LCG model, so I don't feel like I'm taking advantage of anyone because I've paid for this game and now I'm playing it online.
Yeah, I feel that your Napster parallel is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, Napster was taking music that, with one click at a different site, you can buy. You could buy that and play that immediately. Online, the games that we're playing on Tabletop Simulator and are not compensating somebody, the factors are these. Number one, we own these games. We have copies, so we have paid the designers for them. We're just trying to play them and keep playing them and actually introduce new people to them sometimes online until we can get back together and play them in person. So we do have those games. But if there is no other way to play it, right now we're locked in. And there is no way to play this game. That's a little different than the Napster than the Napster model. That
obviously the present circumstances have changed things dramatically. What I would say is, like, what would we really want to see here? Like, what we would want is to see Tabletop Simulator and these other platforms track games played. And if, for example, Oceans represents 8% of the games played, then should there be a certain amount of revenue distributed based upon, what actually gets played?
Yeah.
Like, does Netflix do that at all, or Netflix just acquires the rights and then,
Are you asking me to guess as to the algorithms at Netflix, which they will never reveal? I mean, to anyone.
I'm just saying, like, this is not an unsolvable problem.
No. Listen.
How does Spotify
I don't think.
work?
I don't think Tabletop Simulator has any is going to share any of the $20 download price that they have to give money to anybody. Maybe they should. maybe the answer is if you have a game that people are playing a lot online and they're playing it for free, a lot of them are playing it for free because there is no other way to play it. Is this a good time for the tabletop industry, for the publishers to put out DLC, to get digital content out there? I don't think that's a bad idea for the industry in general. I think it's probably a pretty good thing for them to be doing and to be spending a little bit of time doing that. I think it probably broadens audiences. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the business side of the business, so we can't really say that specifically, but probably if there's enough people playing your games and playing them for free, then there's probably a market for you to put out a DLC. I would not play a game on the workshop of Tabletop Simulator if there was a DLC available for it. I would pay for the DLC and do that. I think that absolutely is the ethical
It's
thing
cheap
to do.
too. I mean, I just looked and Wingspan is on there and it's $7.99.
Right.
That's very reasonable.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah. One person buys that, 4 people play. We can afford that, people.
I mean, we've raved about the Through the Ages implementation on iOS, and that game is amazing. And how much more are we playing that game now that way? I think there's a lot of board games that would do very, very well in these environments. Maybe the answer to some degree is to do that. And listen, if the publishers want to take these things down with a DMCA takedown, I think they're totally within the rights. Me personally, if I am playing a game on Tabletop Simulator that I do not own, and I play it more than once, more than just a try it once sort of situation, and I get into it, I'm going to be buying that. I'm going to be buying that game. I'm going to be finding a way to put money in the pockets of the people that have designed it. But I want to thank Jennifer for a very, very interesting point, and something that isn't. It isn't black and white. It isn't quite so clear as to exactly what we need to do, except that we need to support our industry. And right now, the way we're playing games is not really doing that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.